Hello, this is Todd Hubbs, agricultural economist at the University of Illinois. Today I'm talking about my weekly outlook for May 28, 2019. Corn price strength grows on supply issues. With the delay in planting of the corn crop, a large swaths of the Corn Belt, particularly in the eastern Corn Belt, the specter of a large prevent plant acreage or switching over from corn to soybean has grown over the last few weeks. I think right now when we look at the corn prices, we should sort of expect a price spike and a long tail associated with a crop shortfall for 2019 and 2020, and I think you should market your corn under those kind of scenarios. I'm going to talk a little bit about acreage and yield in this projection and what we could see for corn demand as we move through the end of the 2018-19 marketing year. With the wet weather throughout May, corn planting's lagging way behind the normal pace. We're still well over 40 million acres of corn unplanted in the 18 major states. In this graph, I'm showing corn acreage unplanted as the May 19th planting progress report in the 18 states. I think when we get the crop progress report today on May 28th, I think best case scenario, you're still looking at about 35 million acres of corn unplanted in the Corn Belt. We've already seen the prevent plant date for large swaths of the Dakotas and Nebraska and portions of Missouri pass on Saturday, and the May 31st date's rapidly approaching for Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. As you can see from this graph, that's quite a few acres of corn that remain unplanted. As we move through into June, the Eastern Corn Belt comes into play on June 5th. Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio are well behind the normal pace, and I think we could see at a minimum 5 million acres of prevent plant, probably more than that. And after the release of the second round MFP payments, we could see soybean acreage increase as folks switch over from corn to soybeans as you move into June and corn still isn't planted. There's a definite yield hit for planting corn this late, and everybody knows it. So I think as a base expectation of production this year, we should probably look at, well below what USDA is currently projecting for production. We could see upwards of a 2 billion bushel shortfall, in my opinion, as we continue to move through the planting season. Now, the idea of prevent plants come under some question. In the next slide, I'm going to show you a little comparison of what we can expect this year for prevent plant acres in corn. The largest amount of prevent plant acreage for corn was in 2013. It was about 3.617 million acres of corn. This year, I think we're going to blow right through that. Now, as you can see from this little pie chart, North Dakota, Iowa, and Minnesota, Missouri had large prevent plant acreage in corn in 2013. And South Dakota, while they had a good chunk, was still relatively minimal. This year, the May 25th date for large portions in North Dakota and South Dakota have already went by, and they still had over 10 million acres of corn that remained to be planted. And northwest part of Missouri probably went unplanted, as well as large portions of Kansas. I can't see a scenario where we don't get millions of acres of prevent plant corn in 2019. Probably a new record set. With the kind of pace we're on in Illinois and Indiana and Ohio and Michigan, we could see this acreage number increase dramatically. Now, I've heard reports of people mudding in some corn here late in May. That's going to hurt yield potential significantly in all probability. Right now I'd say it's a best case scenario. Trend yield for corn would be a good estimate, but it could be much lower, and we could see upwards of 10 million acres go into prevent plant this year. So as I said in the previous slide, you should sort of think about this as a severe drought kind of scenario for corn production this year and price accordingly. As we finish up the 2018-19 marketing year, I think there's a good probability that corn ending stocks might grow slightly. We've seen ethanol production pick up from the doldrums it was in February and March, but still the USDA's 5.45 billion bushels of corn used for ethanol, I think we're on pace to hit that, and I think as we move in the summer driving season, we could hit it or slightly eclipse that number as we move through the summer. Exports is where we're seeing some weakness, and what I'm showing this graph's total commitments through May 16th export sales report, And while we had really strong exports through the first part of the year, and the export part of this far eclipses the 2017-18 total for 2018-19, sales have weakened dramatically, and we are actually behind last year's pace on exports when you take into account total commitments. So we could see the USDA's export number fall from the 2.3 billion bushels it's at now. Now, having said this, even though we've seen some weakness in demand as we moved into 2019, the kind of production shortfall we're looking at for corn this year is going to far outweigh any kind of demand concerns. And if the kind of acreage comes out that I'm currently expecting and the type of yield and planting in these kind of conditions materializes, we could see corn rationing in the 1920 marketing year. The uncertainty about the size of the 2019 corn crop is going to continue for the next few months. Corn prices appear set to take on a pattern of a price spike in the long tail associated with a crop shortfall. It's hard to imagine a scenario where we don't lose at least 5 million acres of corn. We could be pushing 10 million acres either through prevent plant or switching to soybean acreage. I know the announcement of the market facilitation payment program last week injected another amount of uncertainty into the decision whether to plant or not, but the kind of rain we've seen across the corn belt, the delay in planting and what it'll do to yield, and putting that yield number in your APH, my expectation is either prevent plant for a lot of acres. We'll see some corn acres planted, but I think we could see a major shortfall and the possibility of slightly higher soybean acreage than USDA is currently projecting. Well, I'd like to thank you for your time. You can find my weekly outlook and daily analysis of issues related to Corn Belt farm economics at farm.daily.illinois.edu. I look forward to seeing you around the state of Illinois.